We go once again live to the G77 and China Summit's venue in Havana with our colleague Gladys Quesada, who has the latest on today's Paramount event for the Global South. Hello, Gladys.
Hello, Luis, and yes, the G77 and China Summit is close to an end, and there is just one speaker away from the end of the debate sessions and these remarks that have been taking place in Havana, in Cuba, in the Conventions Palace since yesterday, September 15th, and that will conclude today, September 16th. As part of the latest events in this afternoon, the Director General of the Multilateral Issues and Affairs of International Law of the Foreign Affairs Ministry of Cuba, Rodolfo Benitez, offered the final briefing of the summit, one of the briefings that gave us the overview of the summit and also gave us the characteristics and the main achievements and aftermath of the summit. As he was saying, technically speaking, the summit has not concluded, but there is just one speaker away, so we can have some conclusions and also some results. Also, as he was saying, over 1,300 participants took place in this summit and attended the summit, and also from 116 countries and 12 international organizations, programs, and organisms. That's one of the evidences of the value of Cuba in the international arena, and also the prestige of Cuba to gather and host one event like this. Also, that's one of the main features that says the high level of the summit and the high level of the G77 and the importance that the bloc concedes to the summit and to this gathering. Also, Havana hosted 33 Latin American countries and 45 nations from Africa and 34 from Asia and 3 from Europe. As we see, many of the countries come from the Global South, of course, but that's to say that many of them had a high-level representation, a top-level representation in this summit. Also, this summit is paramount, and the top official of the Cuba's foreign ministry was saying that the group had not a meeting of this kind since the one held 23 years ago here in Havana, the first South Summit, and the second one that was held in Qatar 18 years ago. So this one comes to gather the group once again in a paramount moment and in a time when the Global South needs to research and to come together facing hegemonism and imperialism. Also, the outcome of the summit shows that it's a high-level event, and it was paramount, necessary, and it cannot be postponed. That was one of the main remarks in this briefing, that the summit cannot be postponed as it comes in a paramount and a key moment of history and in the landscape of geopolitics. Also, he was stressing that Cuba hosted a gathering and a summit with no expenses, no luxuries, and being austere in all the moments as Cuba faces a hardship economic situation and the sanctions are heavier and heavier on the island. Also, the briefing and the top officials were saying that this was a transparent summit, and it's not just because of the amount of information that the authorities and the main organizers have offered to the press and have offered to the public in general. It's also because all the debates, all the briefings and all the remarks have been broadcasted in real time. So everyone in the world could see and everyone in the press could see what is going on in the summit and what is being debated in the summit. He was also referring that this kind of transparency regarding high-level events is more and more scarce and is more and more needed also in high-level events. Also, he was saying that over 100 heads of state subscribed to this summit, and he said that the main focus were the global issues regarding development, science, technology, and also the issues that the Global South is facing and how the Global South can find the solutions to put those strategies into motion and to solve these kind of issues and problems. And the main concern is the growth of hunger, poverty, famines, the inflation, and the climate crisis. and that the G77 with this summit has said to the world that it's not going to stand still to wait for the North to take the demise of the South and to take the decisions. The G77 has said to the world, the South exists, the South is here, and the South is going to thrive and is going to fight for its own rights. Also, the summit has been emphatic and has been stressing the need for a new financial system, a new inclusive trade and financial architecture that allows smaller economies to grow and not to be in the shadow or under the threat of the bigger economies and under the threat of the dollar and the bigger financial organisms and bodies in the world. As we know, the global North uses the dollar, and that's one of the claims of this summit, that the global North uses the dollar as a weapon, a financial weapon against the South and the minorities. Also, this summit was strong in the claim of the international community against the sanctions and the blockade imposed on Cuba by the US, and the claim that those sanctions must be lifted at any time and with immediate effect, so that Cuba can thrive and other countries under sanctions can grow. And one of the main topics that I think distinguishes this summit from others that maybe can occur is that all the participants, all the attendees took a moment to send their sympathies and their condolences to the people of Morocco and Libya regarding and taking into account the latest tragedies that occurred there with the climate disasters and the climate phenomena that have been ravaging those countries. So those were the main claims and the main characteristics and features of this summit. And it's important that from the 48 previously drafted paragraphs in the declaration, the last one regarding the condolences to Morocco and Libya was the 49th edition, was the last addition to this final draft and this final resolution. Also, this was a strategical summit. The G77 is going to have a high-level meeting in late September, as the ministers of the G77 are going to meet to review and to assess the accords and all the agreements taken in this summit, in this gathering. And this summit serves as a huge platform for two upcoming briefs. One of them, or gatherings, one of them is a United Nations meeting on the next week, on Monday, and that is going to take place on September 18th, precisely in New York, and it's one gathering of the United Nations. And also the South Summit that is going to have place, or going to take place in Kampala, Uganda. Those are the main points of this last briefing. This summarized that we're offering.
Gladys, I'm sorry to interrupt you for your very third summary that you were giving, but we have to go back live to the summit as the Marrero is giving a closing statements of the summit that is being held there at the Palace of Convention. We'll be with you in a moment, okay? Let's listen to the statement of Marrero.